for this video over to screen capture. But prior to that, I thought I would just give you a general sketch of how to do it. So, this is a short video about advertising and how to get pretty good return rates, conversion, or in the case of Twitter, tweet engagements. So my most recent campaign has just been shut down by Twitter again. I don't know what my Twitter crime is yet, but I strayed over some line on their marketing policy, but it's huge and there's all these different areas. So I'm quite certain that I strayed over one of these invisible lines, probably because I used higher intensity value words than I should have, but I'm not really sure at this stage. Just I know that they shut down a very successful campaign that had achieved 74% tweet engagement ratio, 74%. So 3 out of every 4 people that saw it reacted, liked it, forwarded it, or retweeted it, etc. And as a side effect of the fact that we had such a high level of tweet engagement, I had 25 sales of the report. So it paid for the ad campaign. And of course, it's working really well. It's on 1 cent keywords, so Twitter has to shut me down. I still have yet to find out what my crime was. I don't know if we can see it here with the view there, but this big red area up here says account ineligible, blah, 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 poor business practices, etc. And so, you know, I strayed over one of their policy lines, and they never tell you where is the problem. Now, this one may be kind of a tricky one because it may be that I strayed over a line by using Hillary Clinton in one of my ad campaigns. This one most recently for 74% on 1 cent keywords was structured as follows. First, I isolated the audience I wanted. I set by going to the demographics section within behaviors on Twitter ads, and I set the level of money I wanted the people to earn. I don't think I chose any other criteria. But when you go into Twitter ads and you set up a new campaign, which I can't do now because I'm blocked out, so I can't even illustrate it. But when you set up a new campaign, it provides you with the ability to choose various different options, I mean tons of options, and then to add your keywords that you want to zero in on. And when you do this, there's really 2 areas of interest, 3 if you're very adroit. And these are interests, behaviors, and like negative behaviors, things you can rule out. So I decided to have an ad campaign that would reach for Twitter engagements to see if I could also convert Twitter engagements into sales. Twitter engagements are cheaper than buying a direct line to a sale or a conversion. The reason this is because they're not asking, Twitter isn't asking much in the way of the presentation of the tweet on, or in the timelines. They're not saying go here, you're not saying go here and buy this. You're just actively trying to engage them in some way with the material you're presenting. So what I did was to key in on chemtrails, probably a no-no there. And then I provided how to breathe free in a chemtrail world on my website as the value-added content I was giving them, the people that would click through on my ad. And then I made my ads very narrow in terms of who we would get. I zeroed in explicitly on chemtrail people. I eliminated words like UFO, I eliminated words like conspiracies. I only went after words that were related to chemtrails, with one exception. I did have a couple of phrases in there that were Hillary and chemtrails, because there was a very large discussion on Twitter some time back about whether or not Hillary's coughing was as a result of chemtrails. And I wanted to capture that audience. For my material, these people are predisposed to agree with that viewpoint. They're very concerned about their own health. And so I wanted to present them with this how to breathe free in a chemtrail world material, because it actually does aid you in dealing with it. This is not, you know, manufactured for consumption content. This is a content that I created as a result of years of studying chemtrails and their effect on all of us, our bodies, looking at toxins, looking at all of their various things from bronchial dilators to vasodilators to expectorants and so on. And I came up with, as I say, How to Breathe Free in a Chemtrail World. It's on my website, and it provides a value-added proposition to those people that click through on my Twitter ads. Now, so that was my content. In all of these things, in all of the ads, by the way, in all of my ad campaigns, the goal is to have a quid pro quo. So in other words, at a very minimum, at an absolute minimum, if you do me the courtesy of clicking on that, you will get, in my opinion, a value-added proposition back to you in the form of the content that I'm providing. So I go to some lengths to provide stuff that is valuable to people, such as How to Breathe Free in a Chemtrail World. And then, on top of that, I have various other levels of value as you go through the page. But at a bare minimum, you get compensated for clicking through, for responding to the ad. Now, so that was the good quality content, and I went to demographics. I sorted my, I went to behaviors and then demographics and sorted my people so I knew they had the money to afford the report if they wanted. Then I went through and used my keywords to isolate my audience. And I think initially out of just by choosing the affluency components and setting certain value ranges on people's income, that generated a potential audience of like 3 to 5 million or something, a very large size. And then I whittled it down with my keywords to where I was dealing with potentially about 100,000 people any given day. And that's more than enough. That's more than enough. It makes it nice and easy to deal with the numbers, and I'm only running one test per one landing page, so I'm absolutely sure I'm not cross-polluting my results. And then I launched this particular campaign. Initially it was somewhat expensive. I went through and took out some keywords that were adding costs and reduced it down and narrowed it down to explicitly into the chemtrail range, hashtag chemtrail, hashtag chemtrails, chemtrails, opt chemtrails, etc., all the variants of it, but nonetheless very focused on chemtrails. And then I set my interests as being, this is going to sound a little bit interesting here, but okay, so this is the currently unqualified part. You have behaviors in which we find demographics from which I extract income of my target people. But within that larger amount of people that earn all this money, such that they could afford to buy my $15 report, I want to discriminate on all those people that are not likely to buy the report. So I want a very broad brush discrimination that doesn't cost very much. The finer you try sieving out in the actual keyword section, the more expensive it's going to be for you because you're going to be bidding at it all the time. So there are certain ways to get at these people. One of the ways is interests. In Twitter, you could also say as followers of. So if I knew that most of my sales for a particular item were coming from, say I sold swim fins and I was had sold a lot to the followers of Aquaman, well, I would target followers like those who followed Aquaman in order to sell my swim fins. It's that kind of a deal. I don't usually use the followers. I've tried it. It can be very, very appropriate. But at the moment, there's cheaper ways to accomplish a lot more. The cheapest way I found so far on Twitter is to use tweet engagements. That's your target. And you'll get sales, you'll get followers as an ancillary part, just as a side effect, if you do this correctly. But anyway, so basically tweet engagements, by the way, if you want to think about it, is someone who's validating your advertisement and passing it on to their friends or the people that follow them. So anyway, so you choose the tweet engagements, you work down your demographics, it selects up a big lump of people, and then you can sort these by interests. You can also sort them by other behavior class, you know, only get those people that read newspapers and skydive, that kind of a thing. I don't bother doing that because it's not really pertinent to me. Some of these things I couldn't tell if a skydiver is more likely to read my report or not. So those kind of things are meaningless to me, and I don't bother to play around with them because it's expensive to do so. However, in interest, you can do some things that are very neat. One of the things I've done consistently is to, in the interest section, to choose two qualities that aid my message getting across and these are qualities of mind. So I like the interest area because it allows me to select qualities of mind. So I choose in this case, in this particular ad campaign that got 74%, greater than 74% conversion, I chose that the interests would be, like most of them, sci-fi and fantasy, that the people had to have a bent towards science fiction, and that the audience also has to have a bent towards comedy. If I get those two, I get just the kind of personality that I'm after. Usually people that are focused on comedy and science fiction have a very open mind. If they're focused on comedy, they can they got a sense of humor. They can take a joke. They know when you're riffing, roiling, and ruminating on other themes in a humorous manner in order to pitch to them. They appreciate it. There's a level of appreciation that comes from the people that follow comedy, that enjoy comedy and humor. And then there's a complementary part of this with the sci-fi, very open-minded, willing to engage the idea that the current reality is not the end-all, be-all, etc., etc. And so those minds work very well for me. So I've got my behavior that says they've got enough money to buy the thing I'm trying to sell. I've got my keywords that outline the people that I want to get at that are inclined to buy the thing that I want to sell. And then I get the interest in there to discriminate against people that are too glum to you know, and too close-minded to look at my material. And so I've got a perfect setup there, a nice little trifecta for doing advertising. And you can do this on any product, and we're actually going to use a reader's site as an example here in the next few videos. This site is roadtoruta.org. It's by Bix Weir. That's Road to Ruta, R-O-T-T-A. And it's an interesting site because it's very good. It's going to be a very hard sell, but there's all different kinds of ways to approach it. So we'll get into doing that. Today's focus, though, is on, don't stray over those lines, wherever they are, the invisible lines that Twitter has and all the AdWords guys have, as to, you know, violating acceptable business practices. Now, and see, here's the thing. Is it a case of digital fascism that's going on at the moment? That is to say, that is there a Twitter bias towards Hillary that does not like my advertisements because they're so telling, they're so pointed, they're so engaging? And I don't have a dog in this race. You know, or a horse in this race, or a dog in this fight. I don't give a rat's ass about Hillary. You know, I wouldn't vote for anybody. I don't vote. So this is not, for me, any kind of a political statement. I'm just not a political animal. It's purely a marketing effort, purely capitalizing on the easy-to-reach, very inexpensive, hot keywords of the moment. That's why I ended up with a 1 cent keyword range. And you don't get much cheaper than that. On videos you probably can, but actually if you just even slice and dice the engagements here, maybe you can get it a little cheaper than 1 cent. But basically that's about as close as you can get to no-cost advertising as you go along. I mean, extremely minimal. I got a lot of engagements and 25 sales, and Twitter shut me down because, I don't know, I violated a Twitter crime. I stepped over some invisible line that's drawn digitally in someone's mind, and I just don't know about what it was, or even the category of my Twitter crime. Just like last time, I thought I'd strayed over the line in using the word AdWords, or maybe it was sexual innuendo in the advertisements. But I don't know for sure. They just restored me. I can hope that they'll restore me again, but I have no way of knowing where the line is or what it was I actually did to cross it. So again, from my viewpoint, a lot of this is digital fascism. Unnamed bureaucrat in a unnamed, unseen, no repercussions bureaucrat, and or an algorithm run by a bureaucrat that is altering my ability to make a living. And I would be quite happy to comply if the guidelines were actual guidelines as opposed to vague goals. You know, there's nowhere in there do they say this is a line, don't cross it. They don't even, well, you got to read it yourself. Go read the Twitter advertising business policies, because you can cross it in any number of ways without even trying to. So let's get on to the actual work of the day here. I'm going to cut over to the computer here pretty quick, and we're going to go and look at some of the screens. I wanted to show some of them in this video, though. in that this is my Twitter analytics. It is from this Twitter analytics that I choose the sci-fi and the comedy among all of the other attributes and aspects of the people that follow me. So that's just, like I say, that's just the, let's see if we can go here. Yeah, see, this is the campaign that most recently halted. I hadn't even spent my first daily budget of $200. I'd only spent a total of $132, really only $113 in this campaign. And it was going very well. I don't think you can really see it, but it's actually got 81.75% tweet engagement rate. It averaged these things because I had multiple different creatives it averaged them down to 74, but I had 81% conversion rate on some of my creatives. And so that was 12,468 tweet engagements out of 15,251 impressions at a cost of 1 penny. And I mean, I think it's pretty good. I think that's pretty good. I'd like to nail 90%, but I'll accept 81. 81.75. I'll accept that. That's pretty good. Now, to get there, though, what you end up having to do, let's see if we can edit this campaign. I don't know. Yes, maybe we can. Okay. All right. Yes, we can. We can edit this campaign from here, and so I can still get at some of the source material here. And when you're in Twitter, it gives you an audience summary over here, which is really nice. I like it a lot because I keep track of this as I go through the various elements here. And so here we have one location, any gender, any language, any and all platforms, all carriers. I don't care about any of the hardware aspects, right? I'm using 13 keywords and 2 interests. And I'm placing the ad in the user's timeline. I've never, explicitly, I've never purchased for inclusion in search or profiles. I will branch out there at some point once I've nailed this stuff, if Twitter allows me to advertise some more. Anyway, my audience size here is starting off at 25 to 37 million. Now, that's way too many people for me to deal with because I'm after just that select group that I'm going to get. And so what I did is I whittled them down with my keywords here. And I will quickly run through all the keywords just so that we have them here. UFOs, chemtrail, conspiracy theories, chemtrail, chemtrails, or sorry, hashtag conspiracy theories, hashtag chemtrails, hashtag chemtrails, hashtag climate engineering, hashtag solar radiation management, and then the words chemtrails, conspiracies, hashtag chemtrails, hashtag geoengineering, chemtrails in a phrase, broad match, and then at chemtrails. That's a poster, a person that posts on Twitter, and so I'm getting into their. Anybody searching for them, anybody writing to them is also going to be in my target here. The key things to note here, there's only 2 very large draw keywords here. They both draw at the rate between 10,000 and 100,000. Now these are the recent global daily volume of tweets containing each keyword. Now note here that is global daily volume, so be very careful there. This campaign I've got is targeted for United States. So I'm going to get a small subset of the global total daily volume around UFOs and conspiracies, because these are talked about by all different groups of people, not just people in the US. So the manifestation of the responses in my campaign are going to be off of a much narrower segment than might otherwise be. If I was going to a truly global audience, then I might indeed reach into the 25 million or whatever. But at this stage, isolating to just the United States, I'm not getting anywhere near that large audience size, which suits me because I want to narrow and focus. So anyway, so the only 2 in there that are large, and they're not even that large. I like to stay away from any word that draws 100,000 or more people. Here's why. Twitter values those words. Twitter doesn't value words that are down at this end of the scale. If you can find words that are use less than 1,000 times in a day off of the global daily volume, then you may have a very, 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 very slow campaign because there just won't be much activity, but it'll be very cheap. Because Twitter does not value these kind of words, as they should. They've got an algorithm that says if you're hard charging and you're trying to get this very valuable, or this very top-end, high emotional keyword, we want to charge you more money for it. And I've done that. I mean, I've explored this. Had a campaign that had 4 responses, 4 conversions at $5 each because of the words I was choosing. I wanted to see how it actually what the spend rate was. I thought I knew how this thing functioned, and so I performed a number of experiments. Cost me a couple of $100, basically wasted money because I wanted to see where the boundaries were, and I realized, okay, these are high expensive words. They don't work for me very well. It's hard to convert somebody under very expensive words as well, and I'm going to go into that in another discussion later on. But at the moment, as I'm saying, Twitter and Google, they don't value these words. They don't value a lot of the words that you can use in your ad campaigns. Regular human words, you know, as long as you stay away from business words and that kind of thing, you'll find that your word costs are very much lower. So in essence, what I'm doing is I know that there's conversations out there that involve the subject matter that I want to reach, chemtrails. I know that the people that are reading or participating in these conversations have a concern for health. I also know that health is an expensive word. If I go look it up on Google AdWords, you find that it's a broad category word. It brings in more revenue than other words. Same thing with Twitter. So I don't use the word health. I narrow cast it down to specific aspects of the health, coughing, etc., etc. And that was why I focused on the Hillary plus chemtrails within the search words, because there were enough people that were talking about whether or not Hillary's cough was related to chemtrails that I can get in on that and present my material about how to breathe free in a chemtrail world. So that all being said, let's examine some of the other aspects of this. So those were my keywords. I've actually run campaigns, by the way, on a single keyword, and I've done dozens of them. Maybe that's what's annoying Twitter, is I've got so many campaigns running and closing all the time. Simply to try out all this stuff. But see, here's the thing. Ultimately, this is all a SQL statement. This all goes in and ends up in an SQL statement in a database as a trigger. And basically the trigger is a bot that operates on my behalf, and it has to auto bid against all these other ones. So in order for that to be the case, or in order for me to maximally take advantage of the fact that we're dealing with basically a SQL statement, which if you go and look it up, they all look like select this from there where this is true and that's true and this other stuff is not. And you know, if I could type it, I wouldn't have to mess around with all of this, but mostly they don't want you typing in direct SQL queries. So anyway, so you'll note down here, this is my interests area, and I have comedy and I have sci-fi and fantasy. That is really what accounts for the large majority of people within that potential global audience, because a lot of humans like comedy, a lot of humans like sci-fi. Then we go on down here and you'll note I don't have any behaviors in this group at all. I thought in this one I'd put behaviors, but I guess not. So I didn't even select for money. In this case, I was after the tweet engagement, so I wasn't really after cash in the form of sales. So I just let it go and said, okay, it's fine. Let's present this information free to everybody. You know, people that aren't going to buy my reports still need to breathe free. And here's good information for them on how to do this. That apparently is taken over. People like the fact that I presented it to them, and we got that 81 point something percent rate on it. These are the creatives I was using. Obviously, when you put your creative ad stuff together, you've got to be good at it, right? You've got to really work to be good at it. When we start off, we're noobs in anything, right? We just don't know what the hell we're doing. We're trios. So recognize that your ads are going to fail as you start off. Recognize you're going to have very rapid ad campaign cycling to cut your costs. You don't want to let it go a day if you can tell in your gut in the first 15 minutes that this ad is not going to be bringing you the traffic that you want. So you need to have your goals very well set and your expectations of an experience very well set, so that if you don't meet those expectations within that short period of time, you can kill the ad and create another campaign and take the next test, the next experiment. The first time I got in and started doing Twitter ads, I must have done 25 of them in a day. Some of them I let run a whole half hour before I realized they were screwy. But it's easy to learn this way, and it's relatively cheap. I set myself a learning budget of $200. I didn't spend that to really gain a lot of knowledge and start getting some response back from the ads. So it's doable. You can do it in a reasonably cost-effective manner. Now, it may be that just because of the type of difference there's going to be in various different kinds of ad campaigns, the next time I do a campaign for something other than my own material, which may indeed be Bix Weir's Road to Ruta site, I may have to retest to see where the points of delineation are on both cost and the AdWords, which we're going to have a real discussion about that for probably a half an hour or 45 minutes as to how to separate out words before you get into the ad process and know very easily whether you're going to be dealing with a high return and a low cost or a high cost, low return word. There's a lot of different ways you can do this to separate it out, and thus you can eliminate a lot of them. This ad campaign I've got running here that brought in the 81% did so off of this top, this top creative, I think. Let me check the other one real quick. There it is. And I used keywords that were extracted using the software from the Twitter feed around chemtrails. And then basically you extract the words from the, you have a hot word, chemtrails. You put it into the software and you see what else is there. You bring up other words and put them with the chemtrails word in the software, bringing out a word cloud each time until it's weighted with our averages from the lexicon, which I'm tuning more and more daily, by the way. And then you push the, you keep selecting ancillary words. So chemtrails health, chemtrails breathing, chemtrails breathe, chemtrails pollution, etc., etc., etc. And you see all these various different ancillary words that are associated with it. Jot those down as you're going along, because among those are going to be your 1-cent words. Among those are going to be your cheap AdWords. Basically, the idea is to get your keyword, chemtrails in this case, pushed back by the process to where it disappears out of your word cloud. First time it disappears out of your word cloud and all these ancillary words are dominating, there you go. You can stop. You don't have to go any further in depth because you're at that bleeding edge, so to speak, especially if you do it under recent or popular as opposed to mixed results in the software. But if you do recent, then you know you're at the bleeding edge of what people are talking about, and you've got a good focus of, or a good collection of words to use in your campaign and focus. Now, if you go and read books about selling things to people, you'll find that they use terms like mirroring, which basically is a form of polite mimicry. You mimic their gestures to say that you're in tune with their minds, etc. And it's a sales technique, an actual, conscious mind technique. I'm not doing that kind of thing with these keywords. I'm not echoing. That was it. Sorry, I'm not echoing back their words. What I'm doing is I'm augmenting, because when I write my tweets, my creatives for these ads, I make sure that I use some of the hot words that are extracted out of the ancillary thing, but I put them in a way, order them in a way that creates just a little bit of cognitive dissonance. A brief discussion on that. Cognitive dissonance is basically the WTF? Huh? What happened? What happened there? You're just not quite sure what happened. Your brain can't quite interpret 100% and give you a feeling of solidity something that just occurred. This is cognitive dissonance. It's like having trying to contain and hold two opposing thoughts simultaneously and not feel it in your body. Cognitive dissonance is actually an emotive response that triggers a physical body response that we can go and quantify, which I've done so in my lexicon. And so cognitive dissonance is a very good sales tool, especially in internet marketing where you don't have face-to-face contact with people. So you use cognitive dissonance, but you don't want to have sharp breaks with a conversation or anything. You just want them to, because we're dealing with people reading, okay? So they're reading the tweets and they're reading. Okay, sorry about that. I'm going to have to do some editing and blending. Okay, so cognitive dissonance, you want just a little touch of it. You don't want so much that it causes their brain to go, what? But you want them to read along and then not be quite sure what they read and have to go back and reread it. So there are certain writing techniques that can accomplish this, copywriting techniques, which we can get into later as we go forward here. But you want just that little hint. Another way to get cognitive dissonance is to use curse words. Those will gain you an extra 20 seconds of someone's attention. They can be used to good effect, but the internet's so full of people swearing at each other, it doesn't really gain much anymore. But there are ways to do it, as I say, copywriting techniques, which we can go into. So I've done that with these creatives. I got an 81% return click-through. Staggering. I mean, when I go on over and look at people, what they're doing with AdWords, even in other people doing things with Twitter. Now, maybe also, by the way, I don't know this for sure, but within Twitter, it may be that the real-time nature of this is that much better for testing than with the AdWords, because it, how do I want to say this? Because you can select audiences in real time on Twitter in ways you really can't with Google AdWords. Google AdWords numbers may present you with an averaged, a flattened approach to what your results actually are. And if you could monitor your results in real time, you may find a slightly different picture with your ads. There's some reasons for that was our creatives. This was for this ad campaign that brought us in 81.75% on the one creative, and we all the way down to 4.92%. The top three were 81%, 29%, 28%, and then we have 6%, 8%, and 4%. There are three in each of the two categories I was testing, and I'll abandon the bottom category and I'll deal with the top category alone, and then I will follow the template made with the one that achieved 81.75%. And I know why it did. I thought it would work out better than the others going into it when I structured the test. You can't really see it, I don't think, from the camera, but because the text is too small. But there's a metering in the reading process here in these three that doesn't exist in these lower three, and they got very much lower return numbers with basically the same words. So in this case, my tests were against reading cadence and mental hooks through that. And that's where we are on this campaign. So if you go to Twitter or go to Google AdWords, you can get this tool down here. Go over to Google AdWords and go to Tools, come down to Keyword Planner. By the way, don't ever let your ads run on display network. Never, ever, ever. There's a lot of reasons not to do that. Bear in mind, Google, Twitter, all these social media people are there to maximize their revenue, not yours. So they're going to do things in terms of suggesting how to run the ads that are not necessarily in your best interest as an advertiser to go along with. And they have no qualms about taking your money as you waste it. Well, I mean, they may. I can't say that really. I don't know how they feel about it emotionally, but all of it's basically algorithmically processed, and so their algorithms are going to guide you in ways that maximize the spending of ad money, not maximize the return on that ad money. This you need to be aware of as you go into this stuff. So in the Keyword Planner, there's a lot of videos about how to use it and stuff, but what I wanted to show was that if you go and you did, let's do chemtrails. Chemtrails. Get ideas. That basically what you've got here on Google AdWords is a metric for money on words. Now their metrics will show you how valuable they think individual words are. So they've got a value of 75 cents suggested bid for chemtrails in an AdWords auction. In my case, no, I'd never go that high. I'm kind of cheap. I'm selling a cheap product, inexpensive. It's a very good quality product, a lot of good value in it, but it does not have a high price on it. I need to raise that price because we're not profitable anymore due to recent bandwidth hikes, etc. And so I've got to deal with that. But independent of that, on the ad campaigns as it exists right now, my product is priced at $15. And 75 cents to a $15 purchase, yes, I'd spend 75 cents all day long as fast as I could to get $14.25 back. But if I spent that 75 cents and got that return every single time, and that's not the way it works. So I might spend 75 cents thousands of times in order to get one sale through Google AdWords if I were after chemtrails. So I wouldn't use chemtrails. I'd use some of the other ancillary words that are lower cost, not as much high demand, and will be actually more yielding for me because there will be fewer people that will be advertising in through those words. It means you have to do more work. It means that you as the advertiser have to get out there and hunt up all of these ancillary words, run them multiple campaigns all the time. But once you get into the groove of it, there's no penalty to keeping 30 or 40 campaigns going, 30 or 40 landing pages, and all of them funneling into the same bank account. It really does not impact you. I see people struggle to really cram all this stuff into a single campaign, and that's not the way to organize them. If you want to get 81.75% returns, you need to do a lot of testing and then be very focused, very precise in both who you're trying to reach and the value that you're going to be offering them. So now, in extracting the words, you can go and do, there's not a one-to-one correspondence between Twitter and Google in terms of the AdWords or their cost. There is a generalized agreement on cost between the two, in a sense that if Google values it fairly highly, you can also imagine that Twitter will as well. But there's a lot of ways to get at the cheaper words. And they involve doing things like chemtrails, and then put in a word here. If we do health, it's doing its good ideas, and it's a very low word, okay? So if you have the combination of those two, it's very low. You can get other keywords, but it shows you ideas. Now, I don't go down, and it gives you these with average monthly searches. And I might get a range here around chemtrails, and then I would ignore those that have the high number of searches. I'm not after a lot of opportunities to compete for words. As an advertiser, I want to do selective, targeted, and have as few auctions as possible to yield as much results as possible. So this is not like broadcast media. So you don't want to be going for these words that have a lot of people hunting for them within Google. There's an approach to getting at these people. There's an approach to getting those words cheaply, but we're not going to go into it at the moment, and it's another type of a campaign. Most of the campaigns that I'm going to be running are going to be very goal-focused. I either want to get lots of tweet engagements so that from that I can have a bigger pool of people that will potentially buy my reports, or I want to have direct conversion to sales. So it's very tightly focused. In both cases, it's all a question of going to the outliers relative to your keywords. So that's why the weighted word cloud approach that's in our software that you get when you buy the book Dominate Advertising Online off of the website at Half Past Human. If you go there and you purchase that book, you get access for a year to this software that I've made, and it has behind it a weighted emotive lexicon that matches up against keywords that are being pulled out, or against language being pulled out of Twitter. And it means you have to work. I mean, you got to sit there and think about this stuff, and you got to think about how your ad is, and you got to think about your audience. This is not 100% push a button and get rich. It doesn't work that way. You got to think in order to grow rich, which is a good book, and you need to buy it if you've never read it. But in any event, so, but doing the work, as soon as, like I say, as soon as you can get your keyword pushed back to where it disappears into the crowd and the ancillary words have been brought forward, you're right on that bleeding edge. And then you just take those words and fold them in to your actual creatives in order to get the response back. And it's a mental echo. It's not a linguistic echo to these people. It's a mental echo saying, hey, I'm on your wavelength. How about this? And as you saw, 81% of the people said, yeah, I'm interested in that. I want to know about this. I'm going to click through and look at that. And I provided them value. And out of that, however many thousands of people that went through and read that article, 25 people purchased my report. That is a pretty good response for the amount of money that was put out in the ad. $138 put out in the ad, and I think counting the book sales, there was probably about 26 sales total. Now, in any event, though, so the ancillary words are where it's at. They're the cheap words that you can run all day long at a penny. Boy, if Twitter hadn't shut me down, I'd run that thing forever. I'd just let it go, just in perpetuity, cranking out that 1 penny word. And I would be adding tweet engagements and followers at the rate of maybe 1,000 a day. For the cost of maybe $100 a day. Not very expensive at all. And out of that 1,000, I could expect another 25 purchases in any given time with any given set of reports, and that's the way the math works. And that's why we advertise. And then you step over those lines and you get run into the, okay, you've done some kind of a Twitter crime. You've got a Twitter crime going here. So anyway, I'm going to try and find out what my crime was, just for my own benefit, so that I don't have to do it again. I thought I'd eliminated all of the areas of exposure. Obviously not. There may be some hidden exposure I wasn't aware of, and that's something you need to be aware of yourselves. When you're doing advertising, you could stray over into someone's political bailiwick, in the sense that if there is a liberal or a conservative bias on a site that is social media that you happen to advertise on, be aware that your individual bias might, or the way in which you approach your campaign goals, may push you over one of their lines. Now, if it's a political bias I've overcome, there's nothing on any of the Twitter ad policies saying you can't use current political events in a negative fashion for your advertising campaign in order to reach a particular audience. But it may be one of those, unspoken rule kind of deals. In any event, I've been banned from Twitter ads for the nonce. We'll find out how long of a nonce it's going to be. And on to bigger and better things. I'm going to just move on to other social media. I've been banned twice from Twitter. It's really nice, but I don't need it. So I'm probably moving on to going in after the big guns, which is I'm going to go and take on Google AdWords. I've got a really interesting campaign picked out